Welcome to Improving Sales Performance, a podcast highlighting tips and insights aimed at helping sales organizations realize and maybe even exceed their goals. Here, we chat with thought leaders, experts, and gurus who have years of sales experience from a wide range of industries. This season, we're analyzing the findings from our latest media sales report. With data collected from surveys conducted in Q4 of last year, the responses from sales managers and salespeople alike will help us chart a solid path forward through the media sales landscape. In each episode, I'll be joined by a rolling roster of outstanding experts from our team here at the Center for Sales Strategy. Together, we'll break it all down. I'm your host, Matt Sunshine, CEO at the Center for Sales Strategy, a sales performance consulting company. Let's jump into a great topic, and even as great as the topic are the guests on today's podcast. Today, we have two folks from Lead G2 and Inbound Marketing and Sales Enablement Agency. Dani Buckley, who is the Vice President General Manager, Emily Hartzell, who is Senior Inbound Marketing and Sales Consultant. Both have been with Lead G2 for quite some time, and I would consider to be true experts when it comes to all things sales enablement and all things lead generation. So you two are the absolute perfect people to have on today's podcast to talk about this subject of sales enablement. Let me set it up this way. As you guys know, the media sales report that the Center for Sales Strategy does just came out recently. And again, if you don't have a copy of that, you should download it and you should get yourself a copy because it's loaded with great information. What we're doing in all the episodes of the Improving Sales Performance podcast this season is really diving into the media sales report and pulling out the pieces that we really want to highlight, the things that we want to zoom in on and spend a few minutes talking about. Today, on today's podcast, sales enablement. So let me just start with a general question. And Dani, I'll come to you first on this. Were there any stats or were there any data that jumped out or surprised you when you looked through the media sales report?
Yeah, there was a lot, but to kind of keep it simple, the one that I wanted to highlight really, and it did not surprise me at all, was the 48% of salespeople tell us that they don't use their CRM or find it valuable for automating basic tasks. I found that one to be just really important, that we don't overlook that. First off, that's like half of salespeople, right? And we invest as companies so much money, time, energy, expectations into our CRMs and into, sales technology. And if half the people are not using it and don't see value in it, that's just like a huge missed opportunity and very clear things that need to be addressed that I know I feel pretty passionate about.
Emily.
I totally agree. I think that statistic is wildly alarming. And just to add to it, I thought it was really interesting that 18% of sales managers believe that 40% of more of their sales teams are underperforming when their teams aren't using the CRM. So they actually can't see the activity they're doing, how often they're going out and, prospecting, how many calls they're making. If we're not seeing salespeople actively what they're doing in their sales process, it's hard to decide if they're underperforming or if they're, working really hard, but they're getting stuck in the proposal process or where we're getting stuck. So I just found that statistic just to add kind of on to the 48%, that additional 40% of sales managers feeling like they're underperforming is.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. It's, you guys both know I'm a big, huge fan of Marcus Lemonis from the TV show The Prophet. And I know he's a big fan of this podcast. He listens all the time. So shout out to him. One of the things that he always says is you got to know your numbers, right? Know your numbers. And so it's always great when you're talking to a sales leader or a CEO or a business owner and you say, well, how many sales calls are are your folks going on, or how many proposals, or how many new prospects, and they don't know, or they guess, and it's like, this is your business. How do you not know these things?
Yeah.
All right, let me jump in with a question. Emily, we'll come to you first for this one. I'll set it up first. 82% of salespeople say they have access to the resources they need to achieve their goals. That's great. That's better than 4 out of 5 say they have access to the resources they need to achieve their goals. However, 40% of sellers tell us that they are dissatisfied or are unsure if they are satisfied with their sales collateral pieces. So think about that. 82% say, yeah, we got the resources, but 40% are saying, I don't know if it's very good. And 37% of sales managers agree. What do you make of that? And what would you tell both those sellers and managers who feel as though their sales collateral pieces are lacking?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times sales collateral is defined differently by different people. And I also feel like sometimes people have a hard time, like sellers have a hard time finding and locating and actually like using the resources. It's hard if they're, like buried in some drive somewhere or in an old email and you can't find where it was. So not actually having the access to the tools. So you like, know they're there and you've seen them. And so maybe, when answering that question, you're like, yeah, I feel like we have adequate stuff or, enough for me to get my job done. But then when asked like, are you happy with the tools? Like, do you feel good about it? Then they're like, well, I don't know. It's hard to know for sure. I don't use them. So I think the biggest thing, and I was actually just talking to a manager the other day on one of my calls, and we were laughing because they said that they get salespeople all the time who come to them and ask them for things. They're like, can I have a case study on this? Or can I have a one sheet on this? Or an infographic that explains this? And the manager's like, we have that. I just don't know where it is. Like, we made that 5 years ago. I'm not sure if it's updated, but it's somewhere. And and not having updated information. So what I advise them to do is actually just have like a Post-it note or a piece of paper on their desk. And anytime a salesperson asks for something, just jot it down. That way you don't forget. It doesn't by the end of the day, you wouldn't remember what case study someone asked for. You write it down. And then if you're a client of ours, ask us to make it for you. But if you're not a client of ours, make it happen. Make a plan, make an action plan. Who on your team is going to be in charge of making these things and gathering the information? So that's kind of a lot of answers to your questions, but that's what I would do. I would make a plan and make it happen.
Dani?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think just to add, the question you asked is like, what would we tell those sellers and sales managers, right? I would tell that are concerned about their sales collateral. I would tell them that they're probably right. They probably should be concerned. They probably don't have the right resources or enough of them. They probably, like Emily said, they're probably not organized or easy to find if they do exist. But it's also, I think, much more common that there's the stuff that marketing or leadership created, and then there's the stuff that sellers actually need every day. And that changes. And so if you had a big haul of creating content and resources 5 years ago, probably most of it's outdated. And if you've never done that, then it's definitely needed. So I think that it's all about starting small, make that list, figure out who are your primary types of buyers that you're talking to. Are you very clear on the different buyers and what they care about? Break it down by stage of the sales process, figure out the content and resources you need, and then prioritize that list. Either hire someone to do it for you or build a team internally, but then say, okay, every month we're going to create 1 or 2 or 3 new pieces and just, make it biteable chunks that you can take on and make it a priority.
Yeah. What both of you said is so important. I hope everyone that's listening is taking lots of notes because you're giving really specific counsel, which is awesome. I was recently at a Vistage, this past summer, I was at a Vistage meeting. I was leading a Vistage meeting, and the concept, the idea of sales enablement came up, and someone in the group raised their hand and they said, I don't really get it. I don't understand. I hear what you're saying about collateral pieces, and we have all the collateral pieces that we need. And he explained a little bit, and really what they were a bunch of one sheets that explain the product that they have. So the first thing I said is, well, those are great. There's a need for those, but maybe you should talk about what you solve versus what you sell as a general concept. But then I said, Dani, I took what you just said and I tried to make it really reality for him. So I said, tell me about the different stages your typical customer goes through before they become a customer. What is it that they go through? He goes, well, there's in the beginning, they have some questions about this. And then what they want to do is they want to know how it compares. And then they want to know what other people think about the same product. And then I said, okay, so when they're in this first stage, what question do they really have? So I had a big whiteboard. So on the whiteboard, I wrote down the 3 stages that they identified. Then I wrote down the questions that they had in each stage. I said, okay, so if I'm a seller and I have a prospect in this stage with this question, what PDF do I give? And in some cases he was able to name them. And when he did, I wrote them down. And in other cases, he's like, oh, I don't have something like that. So I wrote need that. Right. So then I go, does this make sense? We just looked at the whiteboard. I go, here's your plan.
Yeah.
Here it is right here. And he goes, oh, and it took maybe 20 minutes to do this whole exercise. And it was so interesting to see the people in the room go, oh, and I then, full disclaimer, I said, this isn't enough. I mean, what we did here in 20 minutes was an example of what you should do and take more time. But that's what you're saying, right? Did I miss anything in that? Or is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That is it's covering your different buyers and the different stages that they are at and that your salespeople are at, which could be different, right? You have the things that you want to do as a sales team that you want to make sure they know and have. And there's also the things that and some of that overlaps, right? But it's both. But yeah, that's exactly it. And that you should end with a really long list. Right? It should be a lot of different stuff. And then you get to figure out what's most important first.
Emily, were you going to say something? I couldn't tell. Okay. No,
I was just going to say that the process that you went through and that those steps is pretty much like a buyer's journey, what we call a buyer's journey workshop. But then sales enablement pieces, which I think that's very creative. I like that idea.
I didn't use the word buyer's journey because I didn't want to scare anyone in the room.
Less words.
All right, next question. And I think who did I come to first last time? Emily. So Dani, coming to you.
Great.
Perfect.
We asked sales managers, does your website make it easy for prospects to learn about your company and the problems that you solve? 45% said not really or not at all. So nearly half the people nearly half the sales managers that we asked said not really or not at all. So put yourself as a seller. Think of yourself as a seller. What are the first features of a website that you would look for in order to make it easy to communicate what your company does and what problems that it solves?
Yeah. So, okay. I love this question. I feel pretty passionate about this. I've spoken about this many times. I've written about it.
That's a softball for you. Go.
Right. Go. Okay. So I feel very strongly that media companies need to have a strong B2B website. I think 45% is probably lower than what is actually true out there. And so, yeah. So what it starts with is like, does your website exist? Do you actually have a legitimate B2B market website that advertisers can go to and find out about, the problems you solve, the type of media you sell, the different solutions you have, who your people are, how they can contact you, all of that. So does it exist? And when it does exist, most importantly is, do you have kind of a clear elevator pitch of, this is who we are and what makes us different from others in the market. And also, here are the problems we solve. And so I tend to like that to be really straightforward. It might even be as simple as, if you go to Lead G2 website, we literally have a page called The Problems We Solve. If you don't want to be that clear, you could use other language. But I think not beating around the bush. It's not we sell X, Y, Z. It's we help companies solve these problems. And that is very different language. Yes, I do think you should still have pages on your website that talk about what you sell, the solutions you provide, the services you offer, what people can purchase from you. But it should also be written in a way that still is talking to their pain points and their needs. Also, just other big things a great website should have, or even just a basic website should have, is it easy to find what they're looking for? Can they go deeper into different topics? If they're going down a rabbit hole on, lead generation on your website, can they get more and more information? Can they then contact someone? Is it easy to contact someone in different ways, and get in touch with someone on your team? And just ultimately, I think the thing that gets often overlooked is, are you building trust and thought leadership and some value while they're on your website? This is most often done through really quality content, like a blog, maybe you have a podcast, maybe you do webinars, whatever it is, but you're putting out free, valuable content that is showing how smart you are, that you're experts in the things that you talk about, that you have examples, that you have proof, and you're able to kind of build that rapport and trust through the content on your website. And so those are the things that kind of stand out to me.
Emily?
I love that. I agree with every single one of them, and I'm going to share more. So I think that the overall look and feel of the site is really important. I feel like sometimes you go to a site and it's like, it looks like it was built in 2010, or, you can clearly see that the site isn't modern and up to date and just overall sophisticated. Social proof, huge thing. Reviews, testimonials, case studies, really arming your website with past customers who have seen success, who love you. Think about any time you've purchased anything, you've made a big commitment. You want to see that other people have made the same leap of faith and have seen success. The services you offer. I find that a lot of times companies don't actually share very clearly what services they actually offer on their website. So being able to navigate between the services, click in and actually see what that service entails, really clear service offerings. And then the last one I have is an easy navigation. I feel like sometimes the navigation isn't clear. Kind of how Dani said, on Lead You2, we have problems we solve. A lot of times people try to make their navigation headers creative or fun, and it's often overlooked because I'm not really sure what that is. So those are the things I would say to add to Dani's list.
Man, I hope that somebody bookmarks the last 5 minutes of this podcast and just re-listens to this 5-minute segment, because it is so loaded with actionable things that people can do. If you're a client of Lead You2, you're getting all this stuff done. But if you're not a client of Lead You2, this is the stuff you need to be doing, whether it's Lead You2 that does it for you, or another agency that does it for you, or you have people that allow you, that give you the capability to do it on your own. This is the stuff that needs to be done. As you guys were both talking, I was jotting something down. I was trying to think of how could I say what you guys are saying, but from a different point of view. So I thought about this. If I'm a business that is thinking, I run a business, okay? I run a business. So at any given time, I'm thinking, man, I have a problem. I have something that I need a solution for. And I saw something that I think your company might solve that problem. So when I come to your website, I'm coming there because I have a problem and I'm curious to see if your company could help solve that problem. Problem we solve would answer that. That'd be where I go first. Oh, do they do this? Problems we solve. Then I'd say, oh, okay, you guys do that. I like this solution that you have up here. Sounds kind of interesting. I want to learn more about that thing that you're suggesting. Now I need that now I need that thing on the solution, like you talked about, Dani. Then it's like, wow, I'm buying into the fact that this company can solve my problem. And now I understand a little bit more of how they do it, what they do. I wonder if they have some examples of how other people that had my problem use this solution to get the good results. Case studies. I need to see some case studies. And then I'm probably going to think, well, I wonder how much something like this is going to cost me. Like what, right? Isn't that's like that buyer journey that we talked about, but put on a website. And if you use whatever language your customer would use, it's going to really appeal to them. Yeah. So thank you guys for putting that together. All right, come in. Dani, you took that last one. Emily, will come to you first on this one. Last one. And this one's just going to be like nails on a chalkboard for you guys. I already know. Only 5% of salespeople. Let me say that again. Only 5% of salespeople responded that they believe that the marketing plan and the thought leadership that their company is putting out rocks. That means 95% don't think that the company that they work for has a good marketing and thought leadership initiative. How would you suggest building a better bridge of communication between marketing? How do they improve that? Speak to us,
Yes. So I think there's two sides to this, right? So if they're actually doing marketing and they really do have a good marketing plan, but sales just doesn't know about it, I think it's important to create marketing and sales alignment. I know that's also kind of a buzzword, but like what can be done? Marketing can be sending emails regularly to the sales team whenever a new ebook is published, or whenever a new blog post is published, or whenever a new campaign is launching. They can be shared. There could be like meetings every single month. You could schedule a meeting where marketing comes and talks to sales, and sales can talk to marketing, and everyone can understand each other. I think that that's a huge thing, and I see it with almost all my clients, before we start working together, is that marketing is kind of running in its own direction and sales is running in its own direction because everyone has a job to do and everyone's lives are really busy. And it's sometimes hard to remember that there's a whole other side to this that we want to be communicating with. So I think huge that I would make an actionable plan to build marketing and sales alignment in your organization. And the other side of it is, if the marketing doesn't rock because no one's doing it, make a plan for marketing and then build marketing and sales alignment. But I think definitely marketing and sales needs to be communicating now more than ever, especially with the sales enablement side of things. Marketing can't help sales make those sales enablement pieces that will help them sell better if they don't know what they're hearing and who they're hearing it from. So
Dani?
Yeah, I got lots to say on this one too. Agree. Yeah. So I won't repeat any of that stuff because it's all great and important. And, as far as bridging that gap of communication, here's what I see the most in media companies is, okay, so like Emily said, the biggest thing that we see is that there actually is no B2B marketing. We're talking about B2B. We're not talking about advertising your station and getting more listeners or viewers, things like that. We're talking about B2B marketing here. And is there any type of strategy or plan to drive and communicate with potential prospects and advertisers, right? So the reason that number is so small is hands down because it doesn't exist in a lot of organizations. Like it's not happening. And if it is, you might be thinking, so if you're listening to this right now, think, is this happening? It might be happening on a corporate level. And so in that case, you might just have no idea what they're doing. And that is where the things that Emily just mentioned are really important, even from corporate to market level, more communication, more regular communication, and not just marketing, talking to sales about what they're doing, but actually having conversations, getting feedback, coming on prospect calls and making sure they actually understand what's happening out in the field, so that it feels like there's some cohesion and there's some understanding and having shared goals that are talked about. Because marketing is an initiative for sales. And if it's not, then it's not really marketing. It's what it's supposed to be. And so all of that is important. And I think it really starts with leadership, both at the market level and at the corporate level. If there is not cohesion and communication between marketing and sales with leadership, then of course, salespeople are not going to feel that or sense that. So it really starts there. But I think the biggest thing is really evaluate, are you doing B2B marketing? Do you have leads coming in that are new potential prospects? And is marketing also assisting with the the enablement of existing prospects. Those are the two roles that marketing should play in media. And if that's not happening and there's not a plan for that, then no wonder that that stat exists. And that's where you start, is build those plans.
Yeah, to me, it's one of the most telling stats in the entire media sales report. I mean, it's rare to see only 5%. I mean, it's rare to see 95% agree on something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 95% of people don't think that their company has that their marketing and thought leadership initiative rocks. I mean, that's pretty. If you're not paying attention to that, then you have your head in the sand.
Yeah,
right?
you can't it's not like a stat that you can say, well, who knows? No, like it's
right. So, but Emily, I like what you said about this marketing and sales alignment. I agree 1000% with Dani with that. The biggest problem is that so many companies don't even have a B2B marketing initiative. Like they have zero. It's non-existent. But what you said, I want to touch on, because I was just having this conversation earlier today, is that there is a disconnect between what marketing is actually doing and what sales perceives that marketing is doing. And let me give you a really simple one that we talked about this morning. Sales needs a checklist created, which is really just a PDF. And they're going to use this as something that will help them to bring in new prospects. And so they come up with this idea and they're like, marketing, create us this checklist. So to them, only thing that needs to be created is the checklist. It should take 5 minutes to do. We all know it doesn't take 5 minutes to do, but that's the mindset, right, of the sales department. It takes 5 minutes, whip it together. It's no big deal. But even if it takes more than 5 minutes, the sales department only knows that all that they're doing is building the checklist. The marketing department is thinking this way. The marketing department saying, well, we need to build a landing page.
Yes.
We need to build a form. We need to create a workflow of maybe 2 to 3 follow-ups. And by the way, if the person downloading that checklist has downloaded other things, maybe they get this workflow. And if they've never downloaded anything before, maybe they get this workflow. So it's not 2 or 3 follow-ups. It's like 6 or 8 follow-ups, depending on the path. And then marketing worries about, okay, well, how are we going to promote this new
we need promo emails. We need social media graphics.
That's right. Social media, you need included in blogs. You might buy some paid advertising. So we're just going to create a checklist. This might take only about 5 minutes to do, is really an effort that's going to take marketing a couple of weeks. To get done. There's the big disconnect. And I liked your idea of starting to bring people together to say, this is what we're doing and these are all the pieces, because the knowledge is good, right? The knowledge gives people that confidence of there's a lot going on. But Dani, back to your point, the number one problem is that they're just not doing anything.
There's no marketing.
Nothing. Yeah. So you think this lead generation sales enablement thing, is it here to stay or is it fad?
I don't know. I mean, I have built my entire career around it, so we'll see.
I sure hope it stays.
No,
it's not going anywhere. In fact,
it's not going anywhere, and it does work.
Dani, I've heard you say this to other people. It's not important till your direct competitor does it. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes really important.
Yep.
Right? I mean, everyone goes, oh yeah, we really need to do more of that sales enablement stuff. We really need, but just think, I mean, on an earlier podcast today, I'm going to end it like this, because I think this is important. Earlier podcast today, we were talking about how difficult recruitment and retention is these days of people, of good people. Specifically, we were talking about salespeople. If you had a really good sales enablement and thought leadership initiative going on at your company, don't you think that would help you retain your best sellers and recruit even better? Because as a salesperson, you'd want to go to some place that had all these resources available to you.
Yeah,
I think it's so important, and I can't thank both of you enough for taking your time today to share not just your expertise, but to give actual tactics, actual things that people that are listening to this can can implement, they can go and do. And I know both of you well enough to know that if anyone wants to get a hold of you, we'll put it in the show notes, but they can certainly reach out, connect with you guys on social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever you guys can be found, and ask you direct questions about what about in this situation.
Yes, please. Sure. We love it.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Improving Sales Performance. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, join us every week by clicking the subscribe button. For more on the topics covered in the show, visit our website, thecenterforsalesstrategy.com. There, you can find helpful resources and content aimed at improving your sales performance. And if you'd like to connect with any of us, including today's guest, please do. You can find our contact information in the show notes. Until next time, get out there and sell.